cement and journey down to the Sea Islands of Georgia and South Carolina. Feel free to get food at any time if you have to, but you can get excited for our guest speaker. A little bit about our guest speaker today. Her name is Queen Marquetta L. Gwine. Quet. She comes from a long lineage, strong history from St. Helena, Helena, and the Davidson Islands of South Carolina, Georgia. She's a multifaceted, charismatic person who has many careers. She's a historian, she's a computer scientist, she's written books, and she's the founder of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition. And because of her talents, her many talents of her wisdom, she has been elected by our own people to be the chiefess, the queen of the Gullah Geechee people. So, without further ado, please stand and clap for our guest speaker, Queen Quet.
Well, we all kind of had our own, we never get that shit. We never call ourselves that. We made it very peace. Come across with the evil. I look like we talk to her. Terry said that the Yamasi and Cree and Kosama and things like that. So he tried to get him with him. But when I know that, and things say, everyone steady, he called sleep. Man, they know such a thing. So they carry me and throw me for now. The dog catch me there like I still know in the house still. Yeah, let's tell we say, there can be no for evil. God, you know, for good. So long as we ain't been did in there, how we did in this year. See how it come. He happened like when we had him out. Teeth we found him. Came from Cali. Came way across into Alabama, Mississippi, Texas. Make up for walking some other rest of the country. He had been like a wheel with long stick. Yeah. See, let it break hard place when they bargain. But having the same thing is said we our sisters there. But the first one to get you, they ain't going for them teeth, because they know how to work melody. They're the one who make them saw the accent thing. One clap all these young men. Cheap. When they live after that gal doing a point first never get you. Never on the thing Carolina after she ain't never first see him. But yet he never even the dog. But we not yet we near a long time. Because they try to call me sleep all the rest of the day. I tell you, you're not studying with that. Because then all the rest of the people are called. They should have walked around and I'm back with the difference. So they ain't first know. We know. So we be Gullah Geechee. So when they call me Quet, I mean people blessed by God. So see, the other rest of people from every been a claim on the island when we were there. All through the coastline. From Jacksonville to Jacksonville. These are only called the seal and things like that. When they had him with a cracking teeth like that, they should have said, what? So I go, what? Tell these other rest of people for the level cracking teeth like that. Some we they're right now. Act like we ever fussing away with them. So then I come along and say, well, good evening. How are you? I'm fine. So all the time now they hear fussing us and we know some other rest of them. Thoughts we don't throw them away. That's what it is. But we've been in courts with you all the time and things like that. Have to go across you, hand up. Good evening, sir. How you doing? Need so and so. Okay then, thank you. Boy, I'm like, no, are you people there? I know what it is. Now we have to get back off the bridge. They're saying the truth. But you know what? Sometimes that's all I have to do. We are sisters there. And nothing angry. But make sure everything you do, everybody in there. Just one way you walk to get away from the party people. Doesn't want that, no? Even in the evening, we used to gather like all our children are doing in the hall. And wash out, and brush out. And they get it that song. Like, Gary, Chile, Jordan, Gary, oh, Chile, Jordan, Gary, Chile, Jordan. I want to cross over to see my Lord. We let him. We know it. Some of you not there anymore. They let him cross the water there. They say, yes, sir. It's happening now. And it's going to be out in that field in the morning. I know it's they're going to be planting that every week in the morning. But see, when we get it, knowing it's a time for Gwine on. And when it's time for steel. But see, some of them, they cheered at the men after we find out some of them going to get ready for truth, and they haven't known. And then we're going to claim back the red one, and the captain, and have we all on the thing over the other side. Not growing up, Carolina, or neither no cotton, neither that indigo, that's something we call it, the bread they had, blew up for it. Stop to get him called Seminole. Do that because taught him we ain't been going more than we want family of any fight. Red man, that's what we meet you. Fight it dead. Or what else? Beat up demolition and things like that. Yeah. We always been fighting people. Warrior. That's why in the court we go out. Ain't going out. For a while they ever want people no more ain't going to bring them out. Make them so you can't sell them. He don't want that car. He want dollars a car way. Figure see. Be a two-way tail. They're not left the plantation down. But again, they taught me nothing been going on. And it been going on. People been to study one another. Even after 1740, tell me, say, no African person read. No African play the drum. No African person had land. They've been to do all that. All they need to do. You know, yes, sir. Right then, wash out in the prayers of the and they rush in. But try to find the drum. He said, Gwine was mine. And they don't drum me up. And look over and tell everything. Can't find the drum. The drum boys, the drum brothers. No, I said, they ain't make a cut easy. But where you walk. You understand? So long live. So the elders going on. You better sit out there. There's a American. Get out there. Crap! Didn't chill out there. You can stop and do that. But I'm telling you. And that prayers also they come on 1850 war. Get that thing way across. People that's my God. All the things of the truth. So then when they start for coming, what do we say? Now crack it, people. What else? Trouble me. Stop bringing these other some people say allow me some other some people do that. Some call it. Stop with honey wheels. They can't never stop people what they're going to forget. They're walking to do. So now the deal went on the kind then, see arms and things like that. You know, yeah, they a lot of people crazy like that. This shit. Red was like, I look 100 and no said, honey, no one to eat. You'll hear them speak this way all day long to you now. Because for so long, when people came in and heard them speaking their own language of God fluently, they said, that's backward, that's ignorant, you need to get rid of it, do away with it, especially when so-called education came. And my island, St. Helena Island, and South Kakalaki, we had the first school established in all of the colonies and all of what became the United States of America, called the Penn School, but founded by missionaries who had no concept, no idea, no appreciation that African people could have developed something of their own and that they were fully articulating it linguistically and within every sphere of their daily life. Through their healing practices, through their spirituals, through their music. They were like, oh my God, all of that is horrific. You need to do away with that. You can't have good citizens doing those types of things. So they established the school to then have what they call the Portville Experiment, it's called today, of how could they gather African people who had been bonds people, now freedmen even as time went on, and educate them and then establish them as citizens that would be good citizens throughout the towns that they would go to after they were educated, or the towns that they themselves would establish, if they even thought they'd establish it. Really looked to us more like they wanted to teach a trade so you just know how to work for somebody else. But St. Helena Islanders had a different idea. So people would go to school and they learned this. But when they would find more, they know all the crazy people like this. So when they find more, they leave the talking. And they got to school and they would sing things like the Penn School hymn and the like as well. But so, all through our journey as African people in North America, we've had to live in these two worlds. And on the sea islands, even more so. But at least we've had water separating us from island to island, island to mainland, in such a way that if you knew you had to go to the mainland, where these people had a whole other culture going on, you had a little time to reflect and change and switch as you slowly navigated that path. So that by the time you got to town, you could go and put on whatever airs you needed to put on just to get your business done. But when you got home, you took care of the real business, which was keeping your land and keeping your family, establishing your homes, and making sure that the greatest education went into the hearts of your children that made them understand how to keep them aside so that you knew, yeah, you were born and raised on an island, but no man or woman was an island. So everyone had to always work together. And that's what our ancestors did. Igbo, Mandinka, Malinke, Yoruba, Gullah Geechee, Mendi, Temi, Fiti, Video, they all put together their languages. They put together their foodways. They put together their polyrhythms. And they created what's now called Gullah Geechee culture. So, y'all up in these mountains, but you know, there's a coastal Carolina too. A little flatter than this. And all along from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. When I go to get people to crack a deep, I got this show done. And even now, when I go to get them, if they allow one to get it. But because so long, so many people are now coming to exploit the culture when they do hear it, people will make sure you never know they Gullah Geechee, and they Gullah Geechee the whole time. You come on the island and say, how you doing? I'm looking for the Gullah Geechee. They say, really? I don't know what that is. And you speak it to a Gullah Geechee the whole time. And say, oh, you know what you need to do? Oh, you need to go to Charleston. Oh, okay, so then you get to Charleston. And then you say, oh, I'm looking for the Gullah Geechee. And say, oh, no, you need to go to Beaufort. Now you got to go back to Beaufort County. Now you get back to Beaufort County and say, didn't we send you Charleston? They sent us back here. Oh, well, we can't help you. And people do this intentionally because of the pain they endured, where people had no knowledge truly of what the word Gullah meant, that it meant people blessed by God, or that Gullah derived from Angolans as well as from the Gullah people, G-O-L-A, or the Geechee was our ethnic group originally. But because of the 1740 slave codes that prevented people from writing for generations legally, then when they started to write it, it became Geechee here. But they didn't tell us. Instead, they tried to make you believe that you were backward or ignorant when you are actually bilingual. So as a result, there are many Gullah Geechees that cannot code switch. They're stuck. And then there are those who will code switch like that because they're approaching and say, oh, strangers. All right. And someone's like, stranger danger. Hi, how are y'all? This and that. They see me. Queen, what do I do now? I said, why are you talking to people like that? And you know how people ain't no we like you know. So here it is that even today, when people come to the Gullah Geechee Nation, which goes not only encompassing all the sea islands that were once cotton, rice, and indigo plantations, but that also goes 30 to 35 miles inland onto the mainland, to the St. Johns River. They still come today looking for us, as we say, the lonely thing on top of it. People still look for everybody that did it on a porch, a thing of stud grits, and the guys still a thing like this shit going down the road. Ain't nobody going down I-95 like this shit, yeah? Okay, need the Highway 17 if they want to live there, ain't going there no more like this shit, okay? But you still have people today coming and saying, well, if I don't see you sewing a sweetgrass basket, I don't see you working in cotton or rice, I didn't think you were Gullah Geechee. And one of the things that has caused that is the way that images have been portrayed for generation after generation after generation. Not only through film, but in written literature. images that were from the turn of the century or either they were actually during and before the Civil War, but put into books that were supposed to be about the 1900s. And so they see people in one condition at one time period, and they say, this is how you should be today in the year 2014. Now, it's very interesting to us because this time of year, somehow everybody knows to find Gullah Geechee. And where do they start off looking usually? Where they see a basket. Everybody don't sew no sweetgrass basket. Some people do, some people do not. Some of us sew fruits, some of us sew castnets, some of us sew all of the above. But that's not necessarily everybody's gift, and nor is it that every family is a sweetgrass family. Each family has something different out of our culture that they generally pass down. I happen to be from 2 different Gullah Geechee families, so I got a wide spectrum of almost everything that people think about that equates with Gullah Geechee because I'm from 2 families. But some people, they have one Gullah Geechee in the family and you got somebody else that when they get, yeah, the other people that crack a teeth like this and like that, all they can do is listen for their name because they don't know what they're talking about. Okay? So, today, we start to see people saying, well, I read about you. I saw you in a film. I know all there is to know about your people because of that. Do you? Some of our own people don't know all there is to know about our people, and you know it from seeing a film and reading a book. I need that film and that book. Please send them to me immediately, post haste. And I hope that in your film and in your book, every single Gullah Geechee wasn't barefoot, because on my island of St. Helena, even during chattel enslavement, people made shoes. They did shoe lasting. At Penn School, shoe lasting was taught. So when I started seeing these Hollywoodizations of the South, and everybody was always barefoot, I wondered what happened to all the shoes in Hollywood, actually. Because there's another stereotypical depiction. So I usually come out without shoes so nobody passes out when they announce there's a Gullah Geechee program. Because I know folks, you don't want to catch them off guard. You got to get them where they are, and then bring the shoes out later. Always have shoes, okay? Because my ancestors had shoes as well, unless for some reason they were worn out already. They were just too tight. They were hand-me-downs from the people who had enslaved them, or others used shoes that went through the whole family now. Some folks just love walking barefoot. I ain't never been one that did. So they just take them off. But for the most part, they had shoes then. Why would they make shoes for everybody else and not keep off of their feet? But these are the types of things that a month like this one affords us to analyze and to look at. And as I like to say, to get overstanding about it. I don't like leaving under too long. So now, what is this month?
Black History Month.
Black History Month. Wow. And so, this is the only time we should celebrate Black history. Right? Just this month. And stop after that. Right? Yes? No? Yes? No? Y'all don't know? Because some of y'all say, yeah, that's the only time I'm going to do it. That's what that was, right? No, but you say no. No. But now, why is this month Black History Month? Y'all didn't expect that. Why? Because what happened? Let me phrase it this way. How did this become Black History Month?
Why was it not 30?
How did this become Black History Month? How did that come into being?
Well, it was started by Carter,
Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
after one of his birthdays in February, as well as
Not all them poor people, you ain't gonna get by with that. You better find this other one somebody's name. There's one. Not just other important people. It was very specific. Lincoln and who? Their birthdays. If I give you a hint, think that helped? The great orator. The great orator. I thought I heard somebody whispering. Did I hear a whisper? Okay, right answer. I heard a whisper. It sounded like somebody. They're using lifelines in the room. Did I hear it? They are not even sure. Okay, y'all stop trying to look for your phone now. I'm not even trying to cheat. No one knows when I said the great orator? Yes, after you searched it out, you probably came back to memory. Came back to memory. There we go. All right. Now you know I'm going to get you later. You know why. What's your name? All right, so now, who were the two? Who were the two? Who were the two? See, you never listen because you tried to cheat and find the answer on there. Tell her the answer.
Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln's what are in February? Birthdays, right. So when this started, Dr. Carter G. Woodson started Negro History Week. And he did it to encompass the birthdays of those two men because of the significant work that they had done in regard to the lives of people that were then called Negroes, that then later became black, and now people would call African American people. And so as a result of what they had done for the people, he thought this was the appropriate time to say to the world, let us unveil, let us uncover the stories of people of African descent, not only around the world, but in particular in North America, in America, what our people had achieved, what we had developed, the things we had created, invented, the things we were maintaining, and let us write it down. Because for so long, being African people, our story was passed down orally. But in the Western world, the oral tradition is not respected like the written. So what was happening instead was the total denial that African people ever created anything. Negro people created and maintained nothing. They had no intellect. They were just slaves brought over. They worked in the plantation. Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and Martin Luther King was born. And I said, bam, we go. That's how American history books tend to go. You jump a whole bunch of things there, including when Negro History Week was founded. Because it was actually founded in 1926. So now, if I say this is Black History Month, but we started off talking about Carter G. Woodson in a week, how did we get to a month? Anybody know? Y'all looking like we ain't know the rest of that. Why would we?
Forgot, right?
I don't know what you doing. Way before my time, right? Yeah, in 1976, 50 years later, then we started celebrating the entire month of February as Black History Month. The Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History, which is now the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, every year has continued this celebration consistently. So now I'm going to throw another curveball. Does anybody here even know what the theme for 2014 is? Civil rights. Civil rights what? Civil rights what? What's the theme? What's the whole thing? Civil rights in
America.
There you go, boom. All right, civil rights in America. All right, excellent. You want to roll tonight. That's your lifeline back there. That's your lifeline. All right, civil rights in America is actually the theme, and it is because, I'll let you finish chewing, because you are about to say the rest of it. And it is because this year commemorates 50 years since. Yeah, and one thing in particular.
Marshall Washington.
Not the Emancipation Proclamation. That's 151 years ago. Not voting rights, but there you go, right. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now I'll give you homework. If you put in Queen Quet, Civil Rights Act, All right, you will find a whole episode of my show, Gullah Geechee Rhythm Radio, where I actually explain to you the history of the multiple civil rights acts that happened in the United States, because that wasn't the only one, nor was it the first one. Okay? So I'll give y'all homework to do on that. It looks like y'all can do a whole bunch of homework here tonight. Ooh, I should have had handouts and everything. You want to get everybody emails and Twitter handles. You want to be checking up on this afterwards. Y'all gonna have a 15-page paper to write on my presentation. Everybody. So the ones who work here, they write 30 pages. That's how that's gonna go. But yes, it's important to us to acknowledge that theme, because also on St. Helena Island, at what was originally Penn School, by the time of the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Movement, the March on Washington, that space had become Penn Community Services. This was a place where Dr. Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference used to meet on our island and do planning meetings and do trainings there as well. And so this year's theme is significant to us in particular because the March on Washington, the Poor People's Campaign, were originally put together on St. Helena Island. And many people never know that because a lot of it wasn't written down. Which goes back to why this month is so significant. It's not just significant for us to have gatherings, have fun, eat food, and enjoy each other, or dance, or say, oh, we had an African drum and troupe, now let's go home. We celebrate Black history. It is because people need to fully be aware of the living stories that are amongst you, as well as those that came before you. You see, the things that have happened in the past, you may say, oh, well, that's old. But those who don't know the history are destined to repeat it. And so it's extremely significant to know what happened so close to you. We're not that far from you. And so if we have not done our job to educate you on these things, you can't do your job to educate the other folks that are coming behind you, you see, so that you know why you should always stand up for your rights. That's the one thing Gullah Geechees always did. Whether they had to do it under the cloak of night, in those bush arbors and brush arbors, fighting and becoming part of what people now call the Seminole Nation, because that word started to be used for them to mean wild or exiled, truly meaning the unconquerable amongst those who were now classified as runaways, those that fought back because they knew they had a human right to their freedom, even during chattel enslavement. And that even up to this moment, living through, their descendants living through, the end of the Civil War, with the Emancipation Proclamation having been read on Port Royal Island. I look across from my island of St. Helena at Port Royal Island. It is in the same county, Beaufort County, South Carolina. That is the first place where the Emancipation Proclamation, written by who now? No, you didn't, Joy. No, you didn't, Joy. No, you did. See, that's the other one. There you go. Who? There we go. All right. The Emancipation Proclamation, written and signed by President Abraham Lincoln, was ever first read aloud and announced and proclaimed that the people who were actually in the areas that had seceded from the Union, if they had had bonds people or enslaving people, in other words, if they had been enslaving people, those people they had enslaved would now be set free. It did not apply to everybody who was in bondage, but it did apply to our area. Special Field Order number 15. Does that ring any bells to anybody? No? Does the name Sherman ring any bells to anybody? I see you nod. How come that name rings a bell to you? Yes, William Tecumseh Sherman. What is he famous for?
Did he do the march? The March on Atlanta?
And burning, right? Sherman's March. It's normally known well in the South for the burning that he did as he marched. But actually, William Tecumseh Sherman was also the person that codified, that wrote down what's called Special Field Order number 15. Special Field Order number 15 is the document that most people of African descent are referring to, and they never realize it when they say, I want my 40 acres, and what else?
A mule.
And see where y'all number that? See, that was before y'all time, and y'all know but the mule in the 40 acres, see? And I don't need spikely joints either, okay? So yes, so now, the 40 acres of the mule actually comes from Special Field Order number 15. And again, applies to our area. It declared that from Charleston, South Carolina, and all the abandoned rice fields southward to Fernandina. If any of y'all have heard of American Beach or Amelia Island, that's Fernandina Beach, Florida. And 30 miles inland to the St. John's, shall be given to, quote, the Negroes. No whites shall dwell herein. There was no mule specifically mentioned in there. But they were going to give decommissioned goods. So those decommissioned goods of the military, mules and horses and shoes and boots and carts and whatever, were now going to also be things that could also be issued as part of this land granting. But most Gullah Geechees never got land that way. The majority of Gullah Geechees got their land the same way Gullah Geechees got put in bondage at auctions. So to this day, when you hear that we are fighting for, and just like this is a stop on my Gullah Geechee Land and Legacy Tour, when you hear that people on the Sea Islands, or Gullah people on the Sea Islands, are in court and they're fighting for land to keep their land ownership, many people wonder, well, how did, if there was a black people, how did they get to own land? We actually became the first group of people of African descent in North America to own land en masse. We were owning land during the Civil War. The auction started in 1862 in our area. And that land then got distributed that had previously been the land we had been enslaved on and considered property alongside these three major cash crops. What were those three cash crops I named? Cotton, rice, and indigo. Right, what kind of cotton? What kind? She said white cotton. But no, seriously, cotton in Alabama, they do have hybrids that don't grow white, they grow in colors. So she was all right to say white cotton, but I don't mean white cotton. I mean, what kind of cotton specifically is it? Not the color. I don't know. What kind of islands? Sea Island cotton. And what kind of rice is that? No, it ain't. Real slick. Didn't work. Didn't work. Y'all don't remember? I said it multiple times. Come on, Carolina what? There we go. Carolina gold. All right. Carolina gold. What kind of cotton? Sea Island cotton. And what's that third one? Indigo. All right. These things built the infrastructure of not only the Sea Islands and what's now the Gullah Geechee Nation, but all the United States. These three cash crops and black gold, which was what the Africans were called when they were brought in. The black gold brought knowledge. They brought wisdom. They were not kidnapped randomly. They were studied. They were captured according to what today we call skill sets. And that is why they in gold and two blacksmiths and architects were kidnapped first. Later, when they went to the Windward Coast, Rice Coast, they kidnapped Gullahs and Geechees because of their rice skills and their ability to create rice fields. And they kidnapped people so that they could have industry that would be built up in this land. So when we start talking about the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, there's a long legacy and a rich history. When I started to say, well, we're going to what part of North Carolina? I never heard of Davidson. I said, let me find out what is this Davidson place, because it's named after somebody. And when I found that it was named after a brigadier general, the Revolution, I said, how interesting. Given that, how many people here have ever seen the film The Patriot with Mel Gibson? There's a couple of movies in The Patriot. Okay, y'all said it, so like it, whatever. Did you see me? You remember? You did? So I was actually the Gullah Heritage Consultant for that film. So I developed an affinity somewhat for the Revolutionary War because of working on that film. Okay, so when I saw it, I said, oh, okay, so I yet marched with another general up to the mountains here. But I said, I wonder how many other people of African descent really came up before the Black Student Coalition. And I'm the founder of the Gullah Geechee Coalition, so when they said the building got moved from the Multicultural Center to here, I was like, that's divine order. God did that. You know, God knew I'd love being in a coalition building. That's easy. So I wonder who else came. And as I looked into the background of this town, I found that it's a college town. Basically, the town wouldn't exist without the college. And that's been the case ever since the 1800s, right? Y'all like, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Y'all like, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it was also interesting, though, to me, to see what other connections I had with Davidson. Because I was like, God always puts me in places for a reason. And then I started seeing how your college has been struggling with gentrification. I happened to do my radio show last week about that. The destruction of black townships due to genocide and gentrification in the Gullah Geechee Nation. And so it was interesting to find out that the very street that I was going to be able to travel in on, that there was a greenway, and at one time there were all these African-American homes that were to be there, and the controversy that ensued when they wanted to kind of expand and they wanted to remove those houses. And then now the controversy that ensues because there's so many people moving to the area and they want a different lifestyle than the small town lifestyle. And they want a different lifestyle than the college town lifestyle. And then what do you do with a historic institution in the midst of all of this encroachment and things moving in that would influence everything else that that campus represents? Does the campus stay? Do you hold on to the land? Do you fight for it? Do you fight for the legacy that was already established here? Or do you say, well, it's all right. God made enough money now. Sell it. Build condos. Okay. So this is a dynamic we have been fighting in the Sea Islands in order to keep our land, keep our legacy, keep our culture, keep our traditions in spite of others constantly coming in, like the flow of the tide, encroaching upon the land. And now, where we used to have to deal with it coming from the mainland side this way, we now have climate change coming from the Atlantic side as well. So we truly overstay some of the dynamics the administration and your board and your benefactors of this college have had to contend with over these years. But I was very happy to know that in the midst of all of it, there had risen a consciousness on these grounds where at one point was segregated grounds. There weren't black students to come to 1967 and have an organization like the one sponsoring this tonight and to be in this building. To y'all it might just be whatever, we just have parties up in there and, you know, but for me, it's very historically significant to be in this building. I know y'all said, well, the building is all the group, the organization, the building's been here, what, since 1981? Y'all know, somewhere around there? Roughly? Yeah, but the organization was on the campus since 1967. Having come from people who before had to basically work fields. They were working in people's houses. They were cleaning. They had menial jobs. But they had, as we said, mother with anything like that. They wanted their children to have a better future. And that's what our great-great-great-grandparents wanted when they said, go to school to their children. They didn't know that those schools would tell their children your culture was something to get rid of. Your language was something to get rid of. That, as they said when I was still going to school, you will never get anywhere in life speaking that way. They didn't say it to me because they never knew I could speak though. I only spoke this way when I encountered them. So when people now, the same folks, have news clippings of me from Geneva, Switzerland, and from France and different places. Oh yes, you know I have a scrapbook about you. I said, oh, do you? Yes, and pray tell, what's in there? articles, we spoke to you, and in various other places. I said, but do you realize, when I did Gwine, they didn't want you to be the crack with teeth like this. Not like that. It is as if they have amnesia that they told thousands of students, you'll never get anywhere in life speaking your own native tongue, which was Gullah. And why did they believe that? Because they had been taught that the Africans had never developed anything of any significance that you need to hold on to. And these were black teachers teaching black students, but they had been taught incorrectly. So it's always very important to me to come to institutions of higher learning and have an opportunity to speak with the children there, the students alike, and the administration, and to see exactly where people are today. You know, and see how they articulate things. Do they want me to talk this way, or would they rather get me to crack the teeth like that shit? Okay, and so most people say, I want to hear Gullah when I get there. They can speak English themselves, they hear it all the time. Okay, so how do you say I have this, and this is part of my culture, and then never present it? And so I was very, very happy to find out there existed a Davidson College. Well, first of all, and then we talked about that I didn't even know y'all existed at all. I just didn't know. And I was like, how? What? There's a what? There's a who? And they're in Carolina, and I didn't know. You know, and then to find out that you all are one of the top colleges in the U.S., I said, the Southwest kept secret. I ain't doing no PR in South Carolina. Y'all don't want us to go to your school. Y'all ain't got to throw the shade on us, you know. We like the sunshine. Y'all don't have to shade us out. But I'm very glad to know that it exists. And especially to know that you all will celebrate what I call Our Story Month. But I pray that it goes well beyond this program and the various other programs you have planned for the month. I heard some folks are just going on spring break already, like it's spring already. I heard that was coming up, so you know, I need to hurry up because some people got packing to do, you know. But I'm so happy that, as they say in the church, thought it not robbery. They come here tonight to definitely spend this time with me. So, in the time we have remaining, I'm going to open up the floor in case y'all have questions, comments. Don't get too personal, you might get an answer. Okay, no questions. Well, let me tell you this. If you are on Facebook, we are Gullah Geechee Nation on Facebook. Please fan us. If you are on Twitter or Instagram, we're Gullah Geechee, Gullahgeechee. There you go. The cheat sheet. There's our flag, okay? And this is our national flag of the Gullah Geechee Nation. And in the center, as you can see, is the Gullah Geechee Nation's tree. This is an African family tree. So human bodies are intertwined that make up the body of the tree. And that represents all of our different ancestors because we know they are tied together forever, and that's who we are. And you also see the gold representing the black gold and the Carolina gold rice, as well as the sun and the brighter day. You see the green representing the land. And then you see that the blue is here. It represents both the indigo and the water. And we always believe the water to bring you, the water might take you back. And so that is all encompassed in our flag. And I definitely give credit to Elder Colleytown and her nephew Angel for conceptualizing our flag, which we first presented to the world officially in 2000, when they also had my official confirmation of my one-year-long election. I never knew anybody else that was a head of state had to take a whole year, but my election took 1 year long, from 1999 to 2000. And I was then installed on Sullivan's Island. And Sullivan's Island is a sea island in Charleston County, South Carolina, where over 40% of all Africans enslaved in America came through. And so it's a very significant place for all people of African descent in America. And definitely a place you should know about. But that gonna be a question?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes,
actually. So, like you were saying, it's Black History Month, you get a lot of calls for Black History Month.
Sure.
Being Gullah Geechee though, how do Gullah Geechee people conceptualize the idea of being black in America? Because like, you have your own nation,
Right.
and we're all black people who make us feel confused because phenotypically we just look the same.
Absolutely.
So how do Gullah Geechee people look at the idea of being black? Or
Well, interesting. For the most part, most Gullah Geechees that I've encountered are very proud to be black. Okay? They're very proud to be black. Most of them. There's only a few, like, that we don't really know what they think. But most that I've encountered are very proud to be black. Now, there has been a spiritual battle, very much like The Souls of Black Folks by W.B. Du Bois, right? Wherein, because people said, if you were from the South, that wasn't good enough. If you were black, that's not good enough. You of the islands, that's not good enough. You speak like that, that's not good enough. So we've had a lot of people have a spiritual battle with even being able to accept who they are at all. Not necessarily based on race. Just who am I supposed to be? If every time I am who I really am, somebody punches me to knock me down and say, that's not good enough. So when we formed as our own nation, and the more the media, the international media, mind you, was the ones that truly started to put Gullah Geechee on television and magazines. If any of y'all remember Vibe magazine? Vibe magazine issue with Janet Jackson on the cover, I'm on the inside. And it was my installment picture. Vibe magazine, numerous magazines that were national, international, television, radio. They started covering Gullah Geechee not as a backward, ignorant, obscure group, okay, or some exotic group that has faded out. The language is dying. They started showing these were people of strength. These were people that had endured. These people literally had a will to survive, and therefore, maybe you need to look at them as a model for other people, because something's going wrong in African America with violence and with poverty levels and this kind of thing. And so now people who before was kind of on the like, no. I know the ones who know I'm going to get you is all right, but I don't know if I want somebody else to know. They were like, let me tell you right now, I'm proud to be Gullah Geechee, man. That's me right there all day. I'm like, not you. Take it easy. So it's been interesting. So Gullah Geechees have been attacked for generations by other people of African descent, by African Americans, mainland African Americans. A prime example is the film A Soldier's Story, which started out off-Broadway as a soldier's play. My brother and I saw it when it first started in the 70s. Well, that film shows that the Geechee character is one that this man wants to do away with at all costs. Okay, because he represents something that this man just does not want represented. And so Gullah Geechees have literally lived that story, which has been very painful. So to figure you're in the 2000s now, and you would think people are more aware. No. You still have people attack us from another way now. Like, I'm mad at you because you said your own land. Well, my people don't have no land down south. I'm like, but they ain't our fault. Like, where your people from? Mississippi. I'm like, well, there was a difference in history. Largely, there was a lot of sharecropping for a long time in Mississippi. So I understand why your family doesn't have land. But there was a whole different history going on at the exact same time on the Sea Islands. But because many of us have not learned our story, instead of learning it and then dialoguing, we got clashes going. You see? So for Gullah Geechees, in the context of black people, we always tell us how you going to deny being black. Like, can't you see? So we don't deny that in any kind of way or run from that. But we realize it means there are going to be people that are going to couch you one way or the other. Have something almost against you from the start for some odd reason or another. So our thing is always just take pride in who you are. Be a good person, treat other people right, and everything will be all right in the end. That's basically how our elders have always taught us. They always tell you, yeah, keep on the hand and God's hand. Everything will be all right. I'll tell you that in a minute. I saw a hand easing up. Yes.
You talk about encouragement, so I was thinking, I'm the person who worked with Daniel on linguistics. So I'm really interested in language policy policy and language politics and how, because there are lots of groups around the world that are constantly fighting to preserve their languages.
Yes.
And they may have, they try sort of artificially to make sure that the younger generation learn it, but a lot of times they say it's sort of like a losing battle because there's so much pressure from the culture, from the outside culture. So I was just wondering what's happening with the younger generation, and what are you guys doing to try to keep that going?
Well, we don't have to really try now. Because again, all the reasons I mentioned before, because more in popular culture, mainstream things that they see, a lot of Gullah Geechees on Facebook and Twitter now. And when there's a cousin of theirs or something that's not on there, and they get on there, I don't know nothing but this, why y'all talking like that? Like they'll start trying to write a Geechee on there. They're like, you need to tag Queen Quet, because I don't know where her been at. You should have done all this show. You ain't done no Gullah Geechee Nation. You need to watch the shows. I mean, they're like, so they're doing a lot of work now. It's not like even the elders have to do it. But it just happens naturally. I mean, we never sit our children down and say, I'm teaching you Gullah. I mean, that's the language they hear in the family, so they learn it. And what has happened is people have taken more pride in it, so it's transferring in a natural way. Another linguist asked me a similar question this month, because he was saying there are so many other languages in the world that are dying or have died. How is it that you all can sustain it? And I said, well, first and foremost, we believe in God, so I believe in spiritual intervention right there, divine intervention, why we retained it. The other reason is because of the code switching I've talked about. Because we were able to grasp, it was better to keep it amongst ourselves than to have it out front. And the reason being is because now, with recording devices on everything short of your bra strap, people are constantly recording something without your permission. And so because Gullah Geechees have found that out, they will not even speak Gullah around a bunch of people that they don't know, because they are afraid that some linguist with a recorder, but nobody in the community got anything from it. You see, so that's another issue. And one of the things, when you mention these other places fighting for language, I'm sure you're well aware there's an endangered language grant. Well, one of the things I found with those, as well as a lot of grants from the United Nations, any group that they think is within the United States, they don't put at the top of the list to get things like that, because they're looking for the more exotic. And they tend to think it needs to be in the rainforest or somewhere very far away, and then this is something endangered. Not realizing, yeah, we can go across the bridge, but that's what caused us to be endangered, is when the bridges came in the 1940s, 1930s and 40s. We'd been on those islands from 1670 without bridges. And I think that also helped to establish Gullah as a full language. And then as we encountered other people, we started creating Geechee, which really is more the decreolized version of Gullah, or the pidgin of Gullah, or the bridge language. Okay, so both exist. You have a lot more of the younger people that speak Geechee than they speak Gullah. But you still have, we have a lot of people 90 and 100 years old that are Gullah Geechee that still speak Gullah fluently. So you have from people in their 70s and upward that speak Gullah fluently that don't even speak English most of the time, that never left the islands, never left certain communities at all. And so this has been their day-to-day speaking. So their grandchildren and great-grandchildren speak it fluently too. But they just go to school and don't know it's any different until somebody, I've been in grade school classes, and the students will get up to read an essay or just a little paragraph. So the churn walk, and the whole class go, what churn? And then the child goes, the children walked down the block. Okay, but the child already is code switching mentally, actually. But the children in the class are yelling because there's an outsider who's teaching the class, and the outsider has already made it, you know, a violation for them to say anything other than English words. So all the kids now jump the kid whenever they say a Gullah word in place of one, instead of saying, well, okay, I know, but are you reading Gullah there, or are you reading the English word? Which one is it on there now? Then the students will understand there are two languages, and I just need to make sure which one I'm doing and do that one consistently. You see? So that's something we're still working on in the politics of language, or
Do you
policies of that. Yeah.
Like a writing, have you developed a writing system to try
We
to
have
preserve
not,
it?
no, we don't have a codified written system. And even when you mentioned that about the outside pressure, there's outside pressure for exploitation. I have an example right here, and you probably are familiar with it, that has been promoted all over the place, the Gullah Bible. This is not Gullah. As close as it gets, this is Geechee. And I knew when they first started up this project, and this project took 20 years for them to actually get the New Testament done. But it moved from what they initially started with, which was fluent Gullah, to a more anglicized version that would be more accessible to anybody in the general public. When they first started, they said they were doing this as a literacy project for Gullahs. But then that literacy project started making money. And so now all kind of people wanted to buy it because it was quaint to have this thing, because then others who were not Gullah speakers thought they were accessing our language. So now we have a bunch of people running around saying they're doing Gullah storytelling, using this. Okay? So that's another reason we're really not interested in trying to have a written language, because as soon as somebody thinks they have it, they think they got you. So it's like Gullah's for sale again. You know? So that's the dynamic when you talk about the politics. Yeah, it's a huge part. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Oh, good. They got the comfy couch with all the body heat and everything. We good? Oh, yes. I thought I felt a question between these two. I was like, that's like I'm looking at me. Yes.
I have a question about the bridge. So
Yes.
the younger Gullah Geechees, do they have an aspiration to go to mainland colleges and universities?
Oh, yes.
And if so, is it an out-migration, or are they also coming back?
There used to be a great outward migration. And Gullah Geechee wouldn't return until they were retirement age. Or they had died. Okay? But now we see people coming back much earlier. Childbearing age earlier. Like, I'm pregnant now, and I've already told my spouse, that's it, we're moving back. Because I want my children raised in my culture, and I want them to understand and learn things, and I need my family around me. These other people out here crazy, I'm coming back home. You know, we get all of that. You know, so we're happy that we're seeing younger people, you know, come back instead of, okay, I'm retired, and, you know, I've been retired 5 years already. Now I think I'll come home. You know, so that has been a blessing. But we always encourage our children to go and get educations, go and see other parts of the world, because I feel like it broadens your scope, it broadens your horizon. It's one thing when I'm standing at this distance to see that mural. Okay, I feel like I can take it all in from this distance. But if you never leave where you grew up, and you're trying to look at this mural, this is what you're really seeing. So you really don't know there's anything over here. To you, this is the whole mural. So if someone said to you that mural had red and gold and all that, you lie. That mural is red, black, and white. That's it. Right? But when you back away, then you see the whole picture. And so we appreciate when our young people go out and rush back home. Because we go, yeah, how'd you like it? A lot of them be like, I don't. That's why I'm back. You know, or even ones that live off, they'll say, well, I live away because I have to make money, or I'm at this particular job, or I'm trying to finish my degree in this, and the best institution for it is somewhere away. But y'all can best believe I'm coming back. You know, and they'll have a plan. So it's a blessing. And with most of our festivals, you know they love home, because here comes everybody. You know, the festivals really are homecoming times. So everybody catches it, because everybody knows everybody from the island. You know everybody. So yeah, so it's really interesting. Did you have a question?
Well, I got two actually now. So one of them just simply, how many people in the nation?
Oh, I can never leave without that one on. $1 million question. Go ahead.
And how does the state of North Carolina react to your presence?
Ooh.
And I mean, you can answer that from different ways.
Love it.
I'll let you decide.
Oh yes, love that one. Love that. Carolina received me very interestingly, I must say, where I've had everyone from governors to mayors and everyone, state representatives, assembly members give me proclamations, keys, all of this. In Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. I have yet to have that done in North Carolina. Okay? But I've had people in North Carolina, once they started saying, well, we have the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Act, which is a federal act that I helped fight for. Once they found that we had extended it into North Carolina, now North Carolina wanted to know how they could make money off of tourism if they started including something saying it was Gullah Geechee. But they still didn't want to deal with the other political issues of how you displace a number of Gullah Geechee from coastal North Carolina. You see, so when they see me coming, it's almost like, oh no, she's coming. What is it? You know, and so it's that kind of reception a lot of times in North Carolina. Now, of course, when there's an institution like, I think the very first place that spoke in North Carolina was Haytop Cultural Center. That's in Durham. Raleigh, Durham, in settings like that, and for Black History Month, it's like, yeah! You know, but outside of that, it's kind of like, we don't know, because we don't really want to talk about that. And I think it's about to get worse, because I'm one of the historians in a documentary called Wilmington on Fire. So you can look at YouTube and see the clips, and that film will be out in May or early June of this year. And that documentary is going to talk more about what I speak about a lot, which was the Wilmington race riots and the Wilmington massacre. And so I think to try to deny some of the horrific parts of North Carolina's history, they don't want to talk to folks like me that are historians and not like a queen as a figurehead, but as a real leader. Because that, you know, that opens up too many things they don't want to yet deal with. Y'all ready to finish up that food? I need to like run and trip and run and go. But definitely thank you. How many of y'all here are members of the organization that's sponsoring this tonight? Thank y'all so much. Thank you. And thank you for all the hard work you did. And I know y'all were like, man, when the snow came last week, so was I. But I'm glad that everyone was safe, and it's a blessing to actually come here to the campus. And I look forward to coming back in the future. Hopefully North Carolina will receive me better. You want to do something about that for me? You want to do something about that for me? You want to try? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Can we give Queen Quet one more round of applause?
Because his last name is Seabrooks, and we have Seabrook Island. Yeah, I thought he was going to say, you not from down there?
She's named it right. Thank you. She's been really helpful. She's been really accommodating. So, you know, the snow coming in, she's been really, you know, resilient. So thank you again for coming over.
You're so welcome. You're welcome. I'm in sunny Florida by Friday.